Coffee before this. Sophie, can you eat later when Mommy's done? You have a very loud crunch yourself.
So today I'm here to share something very personal to me. I have never shared this with my Food Thoughts of a Chef wannabe readers or any of you, and I think that the time is right to share this. It's not a, oh, poor me, it's a, this is my life and I want to tell you about it. So it's not really a story time video. It's more like informational, as this can happen to anyone. So if you watched my video, the 10 things you might not know about me, I believe I mentioned that either I was visually impaired or
Oh gosh, I don't even know how to start this. I should have thought about this. I mean, I thought about it a lot, but let me start again.
I have an eye disease called keratoconus. What that means for anybody without it is that I have a degenerative, deteriorating corneal disease. How I found out I had this, let me go back to the beginning. So in about 2005, I was in a train accident, and that will be a separate video. But so it was 2004. It was 2004. 2005. Regardless. I was actually getting ready. I lived in New Jersey. I was getting ready to come home for my sister's wedding at Thanksgiving time, and I was out of contacts. So I ran into Pearl Vision Center at my local mall to get a contact lens exam, as you do if you just, you run out of contacts, whatever. And I ended up being there for 2.5 hours. The doctor came in after they did their pre-testing or whatever, and he said, "We have a problem," and then he disappeared for an hour. Yeah, he did. I sat there, I'm texting my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? So he came back and told me I had this eye disease called keratoconus. He explained that your cornea is, is like it's like the shape of a contact lens, kind of like this. My cornea has thinned, and they call it a nipple. It's like a nippled out. And it can happen in various places of your cornea. And mine was oddly very low, as you can tell. You can see that my eye comes down here. That's actually because my cornea bulges there. And so, when asked what I was supposed to do, he said, right now, your contacts kind of are the solution. They are the treatment. There is no cure for this, but it can be stabilized, and right now soft contacts is how we're going to stabilize it. Okay, and when I went in, I knew that I needed a little bit stronger of contacts, but I didn't think anything serious was wrong. Just, I've always had glasses. I think I got them when I was 4 or 5. So time marches on, and that's when then I was hit by the train. I was hit by the train 7 months later in my car. And so after that was when I realized that this situation was far more serious. I started to really suffer the symptoms of having a keratoconic eye. I started seeing, I could see one thing and I would see 20 of it. If there was a light, it would blur and take up my entire field of vision, which is still the case. So fast forward to 8 or 9 years ago, when I really noticed things were different. I haven't driven since 2006. I began to search out different doctors here. We have moved back to the Midwest. And I began to search out different doctors that I thought would be able to maybe help me. You know, I had done all kinds of research, but the reality was I didn't really know where to go, what to do. So I just started going to my regular eye doctor for my contacts, etc. Now fast forward to December of 2016, last month. I went to my regular eye doctor and he finally said to me, Chris, I know fear is what's keeping you from seeing a specialist, but I can't do any more for you. So you have to see a specialist because I promise you, you are going to go blind if you don't. I mean, I'm already literally blind in one eye. I also, I guess last year was told it had also spread to my other eye. And so I finally did because he terrified me, which I'm sure was his goal, to do whatever he had to do to get me to the specialist. He said I was at cornea transplant stage here and I was fastly approaching it here. And of course I cried and I got upset, and not because I didn't honestly know this was going to happen, but because I was finally going to have to put on my big girl panties and do something about it. The thought of not being able to see just freaks me out. I've grown to live with what I can't see now, and I've learned to work around it, and there's little things that I do to ensure my own. But there are things that I still just am unable to do. Driving is one. I have no depth perception. I still am able to cook. Nothing will stop me from that. I have a hard time seeing things that are clear glass, even clear, just things that are clear in general. I have a hard time seeing, which has resulted in many broken glasses, many dropped because I don't see that I'm not to the counter yet, and those things. So what causes keratoconus? It can be caused by injury to the eye, or it can be hereditary. They have decided there is a hereditary factor, and sometimes it just happens. So I have never had an injury to my eye. I've always had bad eyes. Once this happened to me, I asked my parents if there were any eye situations or diseases or any blindness on either side of the family, and suddenly my mom was like, oh, I had an uncle that was blind and an aunt that had eye problems. And my dad was like, oh yeah, my mom was like at Will's Eye Institute in Philly every other week for something. She had a lazy eye. There was something wrong with, her eyes. Hello, whether that played a part in my keratoconus onset or whether it didn't, I'll probably never know. But there is a history on both sides of eye issues. And now that I have it, and it was not caused by an injury, my siblings who have children need to be aware and make sure that their doctors know and that it's in their family history, information. So what do you do now? What do I do now? I am no longer a candidate for cross-linking, which is the insertion of extremely enriched drops. Drops that are enriched with vitamin B and riboflavin. I don't know if you say riboflavin. It's collagen that helps to strengthen your cornea. Sometimes they can just put the drops in your eyes and then subject your eyes to ultraviolet light. Sometimes they need to, this just makes my stomach turn, kind of like peel up the outer layer of your cornea and insert the drops so that they can absorb quickly and more effectively. After I've been to my specialist, that is probably not an option for me. There are indepths, which is basically a wire they weave in and out around your cornea to reshape it. I can't actually like think a long time about these things because I will do whatever I have to do, but that doesn't mean the thought does not make my head spin. So I underwent many tests. I spent 3 or 4 days thinking that I would be undergoing a double cornea transplant by the end of the year or by this month. The good news is my specialist feels like the later you can hold that off, the better, because I don't see out of this eye anyway. We're not saving anything at this point. So let's just treat my good eye. And he feels like we don't need to get that invasive until both eyes are ready. So I was prescribed a new toric contact lens, which has thickness that is a variant and holds kind of the bulge in, kind of like a girdle for your cornea. A corneal girdle. So I have that new contact in. I got it last week and things are clearer to me. Things are so clear to me. They're not actually perfectly clear, but they are so much better than my old contact. And I will take anything that I can get at this point. I really have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in my new specialist. And I am grateful that my regular eye doctor scared me into going and literally got me in the next day. He said that was how soon we needed to move on this. So that's where it stands. There is no cure for keratoconus per se. There are stabilizing procedures that can be done. I don't know, honestly, if a corneal transplant would be considered a cure. But I did recently learn there's quite a long recovery time from a corneal transplant, and it takes, did I read like up to 2 or 3 years for everything to be properly like healed and your vision to come back as much as it's going to come back. So I was grateful. I was really scared about that. Obviously, you do what you have to do, but it doesn't mean I wasn't scared. And I'm grateful for eye technology. And I just will keep a much closer eye. I will probably see him every 6 months unless I feel something is, you know, there's a marked difference. I'm going to insert some pictures that show you what things look like to me out of my keratoconic eye, what a normal person would see and what I will see. I just want you to understand how lights are like my enemy now, because if the light doesn't light up an entire room, it's just a spot, it's a lamp, or, you know, like a work light of some sort. It will, if it's on in a dark room, it will completely wipe out my entire field of vision, and all I can see is that light. So I am slow at the grocery store. It takes me a long time to read labels sometimes. When I look down the aisle of the canned food or down an aisle of something where you can see where different brands and labels change. I have to get really close to see that, all of that. And so, but those things are so easy to adjust to. So God willing, I will always see the faces of the people that I love. That is my story about keratoconus. Let me tell you, if you're whispering something in the house next door, in a small room in the basement, I'll hear you. I will hear you. Because I declare that when you begin to lose one of your senses, your other senses heighten. And I can hear anything. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I can direct you to where you can find the correct information. I'm sure I don't have all the information. I'm sure I don't have all the facts, but I know what my situation is. I know how my life goes with it and how I handle it. And I just wanted to share that part of me with you because I never had. And it was just time. It was time to share this very personal part of my life. It is a life adjustment to not be able to drive yourself to the store for a gallon of milk, or just go for a drive to get some alone time. That has been the biggest adjustment. With that said, I thank you for listening to me. I thank you for being here.